everyone, welcome to the IT Collab podcast. My name is Brandon Barnes, and my co-host is joining me here,
Nathan Taylor. Good to see you, Brandon.
Nathan. Today, we're having a pretty good guest on, right? His name is Chris Kasten. Did I say that right, Chris?
Yep.
If I messed it up, then we had to start over again, but
Nope, we're good.
Chris Kasten, he's been in the IT industry quite some time, and he is currently the CTO and partner of TeamLogic IT in Phoenix. Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, man. Well, considering what the show we're on, I guess I'll tell you about my tech history.
Yeah.
Which started in the late 80s, and I'm not going to do the math from there. I've been a developer. I've been a DBA. I've been a network engineer. I've been a tech lead, a manager, a director, a software architect, a systems architect, even fairly recently a cloud engineer and architect for public cloud.
Nice.
But really, as you can tell from all that, I'm a generalist, right? I do what's interesting, what's fun, what's bright and shiny. I'm not good at specialization.
Yeah, I think what's funny in the MSP realm is that's usually where you land, right? Even starting in my, not the 80s, a little bit later, but you even work for the government where I started, you're segregated, right? In order to get a network thing done, you had to submit a ticket. In order to get a security thing done, you had to submit a ticket. And so I think one thing I love about the MSP space is you technically have the freedom to learn other spaces. I love that. But Chris, what is it about?
I would think that's where people like us.
Yeah, that's where we end up, right?
I'm sorry.
That's where we end up.
Exactly.
The people that don't want to be put in a box.
Yes.
We want to be the heroes.
The troublemakers.
Chris, tell me a little bit about, kind of your journey. Like, tell us about, how, obviously, if you've been around for a while and back since the 1900s, where. Tell us about your journey. That's what my kids say. My dad's from the 1900s. Wow. That's what my kids say.
Oh my goodness.
I know they're ruthless, aren't they?
I think we're done here. Yeah. My MSP journey has been probably the most amusing or interesting. I was working with a friend back in Denver, back in the late aughts, I guess we say now, and was doing some contracting and consulting, and then we were talking, and he was telling me about this MSP thing he was doing and starting. I thought, well, that sounds really weird. Would people pay for that?
Right.
And I joined him, and wow, it was interesting. It was quite a ride. So I joined him officially in 2010 after a year or two of kind of bouncing around. And we took that company from, I think I was the third or fourth employee. When I left, we were pushing 30 8 years later, and it was a fun ride. I learned a lot about the industry. And we got to a point where I kind of always knew I wanted to have my own business or be partners in a business, and kind of realized that maybe wasn't where this was the right place to be. So I took an abrupt 90 degrees and said, I'm going to specialize. And we already covered how well that works. But I specialized for 3 years and was kind of miserable, to be honest. Went back to work for one of our clients as their AWS director of cloud and did all the cloud stuff, was all in. And then 3 years later, I was like, okay, what else can I do? And so I ended up back in the MSP world, which maybe isn't where I planned on being when I said I wanted to own my own business, but I know it. Yeah. I figured, well, I'll just drop right back in. No big deal. I've done this before.
It's not boring.
It's not boring. And holy cow, those 3 years I was out, everything changed. Or 4 years I was all the acquisitions, all the VC money buying up, all the companies, I swear I've spent the last year just trying to figure out who owns who and what conglomerates are behind them. And it's really, the tools scene has really changed. Um,
Massively.
Not for the better, I would say. Um, but it's been quite a ride coming back.
Yeah, and Chris, you and I go back a long ways. You ended up hiring me in that first stint at the MSP, and you had the privilege of managing my on butt for a number of years, and we uh we had
I
a lot of
kind of
fun
want to tell
together.
the Yeah, I kind of want to tell the origin story here, but I'm not sure if it's
Go for it. Go for it. Tell the story.
how we met.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, the first time yeah, okay. It's a fun story, right? The first time
Yes.
we met, the company I was at was Efficient Forms, and we're a little startup, I guess you'd say. Even 20 years later, we still called ourselves a startup, but I digress.
Right.
We had bought a used copier, and we called for help, and we ended up with some kid named Nathan Taylor was on his way to help us set up this copier. And so he walked in, and I asked him if he was. I think I asked you if you were playing hooky today, but he was super helpful, and he was kind of looking around the environment. And he's like, "Wow, what else you got going on here?" So we talked a little bit, and I said, I need to build another Active Directory server here when I have time. And I believe, as I recall, you said, "I can take care of that for you. Why don't you engage us?"
Always be closing.
Always
That's
be
right.
closing. Yeah.
That's
And
how you learn.
I said, you know what, kid, I'll give you a shot. I didn't say kid. And then I think it was about a week later, we had the install planned, and Nathan walked in with about an inch and a half of printed paper. And he said, I've got everything we need to do right here. Thunks it on the desk. And gosh, the rest is history. Thankfully, all the printed paper worked out, and I don't know that he used a whole lot of it. But you had your guides with you just in case. And
Yes.
yeah, then we started doing lunch every few months, and lo and behold, I don't when did you come join us?
2015. I joined you
Yeah.
in 2015, and so I'm coming up at 10 years at the same company. Now we've been acquired and through three different iterations, but um, yeah, still alive and
And
kicking.
you've had a hell of a journey in those 10 years.
Yeah, it's
Seriously.
been wild, and you were very gracious through some ornery moments. There were definitely some growing pains and some maturity moments for me. I will admit, man. I think engineers can be fun to manage. I've got to see the other side of that over the years. So yeah, it's always interesting. But
Yep.
I think it's interesting to hear more about what's new in the space. Like you talked about the tool sets, but like I think that's actually a really critical conversation in the MSP space. So much of the MSP space was built on tool sets, and that's changing by the week right now. And I think it's going to be very disruptive to the space. So talk about what's different now that you're coming back 3-4 years later. What sort of things you're learning and running into, and you just kind of expand on that.
Yeah. Some of the things I'm running into most recently is where I'm really struggling is specifically in the security tools space.
Yeah.
We have a
Yeah.
security practice like every other MSP, and I have some really good guys on the team. Um, I had a manager leading that who recently left us, and I naively said, "How tough can this be? I'll just take on oversight. I've got smart guys doing the work." And
Right.
I start going through these tools, and it's every tool in that security space does 19 things, and they all
Mhm.
overlap. A Venn diagram is just sick. They overlap in 16 places, and I'm really my biggest one of my biggest struggles right now is am I getting my money's worth out of this tool, and why am I using this tool for this instead of that tool for this?
Mhm.
Because they
Mhm.
all do it. SASE is a great example. Every time I turn around, somebody else is doing SASE. Everybody does SASE. It's like, oh my
Yep.
gosh. Um, to the detriment of the tool companies, I think, because a lot of them really can't distinguish themselves. It's more, in my mind, at least, I see just a lot of me too. Oh yeah, we do that too. Yep, we bolted that on last month. Yep, we do that too. You're like, well, why is yours better?
If not, they're bought out by the bigger conglomerates and kind of taken over, right? And that's kind of what I always see is, geez, like every time I turn around, like 2 more companies recently were bought out. I think that last 2 is Axient and Skykick,
But
bought
yeah, by
out
ConnectWise.
by
Yep. Yeah.
ConnectWise, right? And
It's
it's like, okay, they
it's
bought both back a cloud backup company. Like, all right, that's all right,
it's yeah, it's 20 years ago, Microsoft versus Apple all over again. Because are you Kaseya or are you ConnectWise? Because
yeah, right,
it's like, well, I don't want part of either of them, but that's not really an
Right.
option anymore.
yeah, yeah. What are you
Yeah.
gonna do instead?
I think this is a area we're going to see continue to accelerate though, because I think AI is an accelerator on this problem,
Yeah,
because the security tools can benefit so much from AI for incident response, incident analysis, data analysis, reporting, and automation. And if you can get some AI built onto that giant pile of data your security tool is running, it's a huge win. But as you said, Chris, if you've got 7 security tools, AI can't get at that data. You can't leverage any of the upside of those 8 tools. And I think you're going to see very quickly, you have to pick a horse, and it's got to be your horse
Right.
for 90% of the things, because the automation and AI is just too valuable to miss out on, of having 17 tools.
I
that's
would agree, but I think that's where AI isn't always a blessing, right?
Sure.
'Cause
Sure.
for that reason, you have to pick a horse, and you're gambling, and because you want to use all these benefits because it's a closed garden and it's scary. Um, and these are things that 5 years ago, as a leader of an MSP but not an owner, I didn't give a whole lot of credence to or worry about. And now as an owner, oh, this crap keeps me up at night because, am I doing the right thing? Is this really the tool that we want to go with?
Well, yeah,
yeah,
because there's value in having multiple voices, right? You don't want just one vendor's security perspective. You'll maybe want a second
Right.
layer, right? But are you spending too much? Are you missing out on the AI? And part of the fun of being in an MSP 5 years ago was you could pick your favorite tools. Like you had strong opinions. You're like, well, I really like these firewalls. I really like this phishing tool, and I really like this antivirus. And you picked reasons like the management or the deployment or the billing model. There was all these layers that you'd make it factor into the decision. But what's interesting is now that decision has moved from what's the best product to what product goes with which ownership company and which 3-year commitment and which
Right.
AI layer. And like now you've added 3 or 4 decision points into this decision. It's become much more complicated to decide which horse you're going to ride.
And you're ignoring the whole channel and distribution thing. I mean, now we're in the era of PAX 8 in the middle of everything. But yeah, so many of our decisions are, well, we're Ninja One and Autotask. So first tell me what works best with those, you know. Um, oh, great, you create tickets in Halo. Okay, so you're off the plate. And so strange way to make decisions, but yeah. So that, when you talk about coming back into the game, that's really been my biggest challenge. And that and just all the overlap, all the Me Too's. I don't want to call out anybody specifically because they're not a bad company, but Inverasoft is a great example of this, right? Every week, and we use IT support panel from Inverasoft. Love it.
Okay.
Clients love it. Everybody, we get great engagement through it. Every week they release a new product now. They're totally going after ScalePad and some of the others in the space. Oh, we have a warranty thing now. Oh, we have a virtual CIO thing now. Oh, we have a lifecycle manager thing. And, it's like, guys, you're not helping. You're really
right.
not helping.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
But it is becoming a world where you're picking between Inverasoft and ScalePad because those are your two
Yep.
choices, right? Like that is also the world. It's like everything. It's the 2-party system. We can't get away from it.
Good timing on that. Lord, let's not talk about that.
So Chris, what I mean, obviously, we talked about even since 2015, you left in 3 years. Other than the tool sets, How would you say how would you say customer service has changed in the MSP realm?
Brandon, I have a tough time answering that because I changed parts of the country.
Yeah.
So some of what I deal with, I'm not sure if that's a Phoenix versus Denver thing or if it's an evolution of everybody. I will say I'm of the opinion, at least where I'm at now, that people expect a lot more communication.
Yep.
I think and Nate, you can probably back me up a bit, that at Machine Logic, we had some clients that expected communication and to be in the loop, but a lot of stuff was they would just loft a ticket over the wall and wait for it to come back. And when it was done, it was done. And I'm definitely not living in that world anymore. If a ticket's not done within hours, we need to be communicating, explaining where it's at, next steps. There seems to be a lot more communications expected.
I think I think it's a effect of the technology world we live in. Like we get,
Yeah.
your toaster sends you a text when it's done with the toast, right? Like
Right.
we're in a world where everything we have communicates really well automated with us. I know when my garage door opens. I know when the sprinkler system stops because I get a toast notification on my phone, right? Like now those are really nerdy examples, but I think there is a sense in which we have immediate gratification feedback loops with so many things in our lives. And so the idea of waiting for our tech support to get back, and if I can't get a real person on chat support in 2 minutes, I just stop, I just go away and I do it later. Like I don't wait. I don't sit there and wait in the queue. I go, I don't have time. I got to move on. I think
Human.
I have that same problem where I want that, give me the feedback I'm looking for
Yeah.
as soon as possible.
That's probably, you're right. I'm sure that's the evolution of the social media world and the always on that we live in. Um, it's funny you say that because one of the biggest improvements we made to our help desk environment was we switched to a phone system, a call queuing system that allows callbacks. Just leave, press 9 and we'll call you back when you come up. Oh my gosh, people love that.
Really?
Not
Oh.
everybody, but that was definitely uh, a hit of they don't have to sit there doing a slow burn for a minute and a half.
Who do
We'll
you
just call them.
who do you do that through?
Nuso. We're using Nuso.
Okay. That's a good
They have a amazing call queue system. It's changed our world for how we run. We can finally run our help desk as a more like a call center
It's cool.
for keep. I should say that.
Right.
I mean, I'm a Nuso partner, but I am.
How do you spell that, Chris? That's right.
Yeah, that's NUSO. No, but no, we are really happy with using them for ourselves. Has been amazing.
It's cool.
Yeah, even the 24-hour, right? Like I know we don't get a ton of calls after hours, but that has changed, I think, for me, where I really don't get a lot of calls. I think I got more calls 10 years ago on the weekend or after hours than I do now.
I would agree.
Is it just
Yeah,
me?
no,
Yeah,
I would
like
agree.
people take off. I mean, I remember like, oh man, you're like, I'm on call this weekend, dang it. And then now I'll take the phone. It's fine. I don't care. Like, so the team's out of I'm trying to help out the team or whatever it is. And yeah, I just don't get calls. And I mean, granted, don't get me wrong, but we've all worked Christmases before. And we've all worked like holidays when some madness happens because that's when, hackers like to attack, is when no one's there. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you, bad people. So let's talk security here, guys. Let's just spin it real quick. What's the newest, craziest stuff you guys are dealing with from the MSP realm? Yeah, yeah, I know.
I think the business email compromise seems to be a thing we're hearing a lot of
Yeah,
stealing, and the real challenging part is they're getting smarter where they're not, when they compromise account, they don't attack the company that the account is in, they attack their partners. So
right.
they're interfering with invoices and those sort of things, but they're using legitimate email accounts to do it. And I mean, just the stories coming out of that are right now and very hard to prevent because it's a SPF passing, properly encrypted, all these things. It's a legitimate invoice they're expecting, just the ACH has changed. those sort of things are happening a lot, and it's heartbreaking. There's been some big numbers that have gone through, and it just breaks your heart.
And I think I agree that that's definitely the biggest, where we're seeing the most activity. And sadly, almost always it's my clients getting compromised and not knowing it until their clients start questioning invoices and stuff. And then it, 3 days later, now it's a big thing. And almost always it's somebody who has absolutely refused and died on the hill to turn on MFA. Yeah, almost always. And it's funny 10 years later to still be trying to beat that drum of you got to use MFA. 10 years later, 15 years. I mean, golly. Okay, 15 might be hyperbole, but 10 for sure.
Yeah. So Chris, I got to ask this. This is a question I know Nathan's heard before. So your client is, they end up paying the bill because their vendor or client is the one that sent them a bill. So your client sends them, who's at fault? Yeah, right. And then, yeah.
I can tell you that almost guaranteed I have something signed saying they declined that recommendation.
Yeah.
But yeah, who's at fault? Gosh, you can't help but feel guilty. But I'll never say that to the cyber insurance agent.
Right. I mean, that's the response I usually get is, it's up to the insurance company. That's the hard piece is, this person's compromised, but you're paying the bill. That's just madness.
Yeah.
And then now you see the cybersecurity insurance where it's not just IT. They're like, okay, guys in the accounting department, you need to have, a full on some kind of methodology to verify that your payments are going through correctly.
Yeah. We see some of that just for servicing those industries now, where it's not enough for us to say, here's our security policy, here's our guidelines. We now have to back them up. Everything we say happens in that security doc. We have to show.
To happen.
Yep. Here's our quarterly log polling review ticket with the results. Here's our firewall review ticket with. So, and I guess that goes back to your earlier question: what's really changed? One of the things that's really changed, obviously, is cyber insurance. Kind of that tail is wagging the dog in a lot of different directions now, and it's really, I mean, generally probably for us for the best, because we've had to evolve.
Well, it forces the customers to do stuff like you talked about MFA. Oh, I don't want MFA. Well, you're not going to get cyber insurance then. Oh, right. Okay. I mean, I've had multiple conversations with customers and said, you're uninsurable if you make this choice, because the insurance company has the actuarial table that says you're too big of a risk. And usually those owners go, well, you're a nerd and I don't trust you, but I trust actuarial tables and insurance people because they know what they're doing. So I'll listen to them. And you're like, all right, well, I'll take it. If that's what it takes to get your attention, then yes, that's the answer.
And my customers say, nobody's interested in our data. Don't worry about it.
Nope. They just want your money. You're right. They don't want your data.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another piece. Like you said, it's a different world because, we were kind of on the whole realm of, the ransomware. And then, you get that was a big thing for a long time. Then, everyone got really pretty good at backups, right? Because that's the biggest, defense against that one. And we saw how many people lose how many millions of dollars on that one. Like, that was crazy one. And then all of a sudden we get a little smart. And then now it's this email spoofing. And it started off with like, oh, no one's going to spoof this. They always misspell the words. They always do this. And now we're kind of realizing, like Nathan and I had to talk about this, a few episodes ago, where they literally map it out. They'll draw it on the board and they'll actually like go through who and what department pays what to who, so they can actually find that right time with the right account number information, the ACH, the wire transfer, the whatever, and hope to God that your bank stops a $500,000 payment, because, that's stuff we're getting into now is they're legitimate. Or my favorite one was years ago. It was probably 2019. The first time I saw it was, like you said, legitimate SPF records, all the other things, but they didn't have the layers like having outside email or this is coming from an outside email, and they swapped an I and an E in the name of a company in their legitimate domain name email. It looked just like theirs. They
Oh
paid
no,
it out.
yeah.
Like it just,
Yep.
they get, I mean, there's so many tricks to this. So I
We've
just,
seen some good ones. And
yeah,
how much time have we spent in the last year? Well, sadly, right, it's because Yahoo and AOL throw a tizzy, and now everybody has to have DMARC and DKIM.
yeah,
And up until then, beg we couldn't
people to
beg
do it.
people, just please let us fix your record. Oh no, we don't need that. Oh, then this year
Right.
it's like, we can't get email to our clients in AOL. You kind of want to say, I think that's okay, but but you
Yeah.
can't say that. So
You're still on
yeah.
AOL?
Exactly.
Dang it, Mom.
Let me pick your brain on a specific product. What is your thoughts about Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Business in the MSP space?
Oh, I hate to say it because this would be a great discussion, but I don't have a strong opinion.
It's fair.
My predecessor was a big fan, but we never had that discussion of convince me. So, unfortunately, I hate to dry up that conversational
No,
trait,
it's all right.
but
I can give you my 2 cents on it, and
I
then
would
we
love
can
to
move
hear
on.
it.
I know Defender. I know Brandon. You guys deploy a lot of it, right? You guys have a lot of it in your
Yeah,
customer base.
we do. We do. I mean, we chewed on the Microsoft candy bar for quite some time. And I'll be honest, I love it.
Yeah.
I've used, Cylance, I've used Sentinel-1, I've used the other stuff. I have DBAs in my office, right? So if I wanted to query if this executable was executed amongst all my machines that have Defender on there, it's a crazy good forensic tool, like just nuts. And it, with the way they're moving in the security center, and Microsoft, they're just one big slow moving animal. Just, are they
Yes.
buying stuff up? But they do it secretly. They don't tell you that they buy. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, by the way, we got this new feature. And think about that when they did Defender because they bought some antivirus company, right? They bought Intune.
An Israeli. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. And so it's come together. And I'll be honest, like we bought in since I want to say 2016 when it first came out
Yep.
or something like that. It was around that time frame. Quote me, please. And when we came out, and Nathan, I know you have a lot more buy-in to all the trial stuff, so I'm not trying to put up, but I like it. I really do.
Yeah.
And I think that if you look at people make fun of it, but what's the chart that starts with the G? Can't remember.
Gartner.
Yeah, Gartner. Thank you. I want to say Gantt too. But the Gartner report, basically, Microsoft's always at the top.
Yeah,
they are.
When we were interviewing SOC providers a couple of years ago, one of my questions for them was, all vendors aside, you want to pick a security endpoint solution, what would you pick? And almost all of them said Defender was the one they thought did the best. I mean, that was 2 years ago. The people on the ground were like, this tool that's something special. And we're talking people who know, the Sentinel-1s and the Cylances and the CrowdStrikes of the world, and they said Defender's it. I think the issue Defender has is, the MSP industry, and Chris, you can vouch for this, we're built around our tool sets. So can I deploy it? Can I monitor it? Can I alert it? Can I manage it from one central console across all of my customers? And preferably tied into one of my other consoles.
You skipped the first one. Can I sell it? Can I get money for it?
Yes. And so it's included in Business Premium, but are you selling Business Premium? What are you selling? Now I'm bolting on a $5 Defender for Business. There's licensing issues. The really Microsoft Forward partners are selling Business Premium to everybody. So the license is a less of an issue. But you're right, there's a sales issue and there's a margin issue because I make 30 points on my antivirus to my customers or 40 points or whatever it is. There's a line item on my bill that drives revenue, and that's a decision. So you're absolutely right. But I think the next thing that really gets critical becomes, hey, if I want to exclude something across all my endpoints, can I do that? And I think right now that's a real big challenge. Is like, can I make a change across 60 Defender tenants quickly. If you've got people like Brandon does, where you can script some of that and you have expertise in that, there's opportunities. And there's some new features that Microsoft's building with. They have a new multi-tenant XDR portal that's useful. They're starting to integrate with ConnectWise and with Huntress and with Blackpoint Cyber. And so those three vendors are starting to build some management layers, but I still think Microsoft's not opening up the APIs to the level that is needed. And like for SourcePass, we got like 2,500 customers. So if I have to whitelist something, I need to be able to do it now. And a lot of the third party, we use SentinelOne. I can do that with one click and SentinelOne across every customer. Hey, make this change. It's seamless and it's instant. And I think that's what's going to hold up Defender in the MSP space. And until they understand, truly enabling us to do that, it's going to be hard.
It's interesting because that the ability to do that in SentinelOne is probably more due to them being in the enterprise space.
Yeah.
Versus MSP first would be my guess. Because without mentioning names, the endpoint that we push, I can't do that. I sure wish I could, but I have the same problem you have with Defender. I got to go into 170 tenants and make that, or figure out the API.
Which, yeah, I agree with you on that one. That's the question we're running into today. Think about 10 years ago, we couldn't do any of that.
Oh yeah.
All right. There was no centrally managed, web root or whatever we used back whenever it was.
Bitdefender.
Hope to God I never. Yeah, Bitdefender, Trend Micro. Who knows?
And then now you're getting into the world of that's what Kaseya is trying to sell, right? Hey, if you buy our Kaseya 365, we have your backup, we have your fish test, we have your SOC, we have your SIM, we have your antivirus, we have your MDR, your MRR, RMM. How many acronyms can we throw in for one low price and a impossible to escape through your commitment? You too can have all of your stuff from one vendor.
Yeah.
So you said it. You did it. That's awesome.
Now with lube. Yeah.
Yes, it's brutal.
Their marketing on that has been a bit over the top.
The Kaseya 365, that's the new one.
Yep.
And I looked into that and, like 525 and you get everything. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
And frankly, well, I'm circling all the way back to earlier in the conversation. It's that whole we do everything and you're trying to figure out, well, yeah, you do, but 30-40% of these are okay. The rest are not best of breed. And that's kind of how I feel about Kaseya 365. Yes, you are checking all the boxes, but maybe those aren't really the solutions I want.
Right.
And you bought the solution and you bolted into your license, but it's not integrated. So like we've all been around that. The vendor that has all the solutions, Autotask was famous for that. The number of modules where you go, why is this feature under a right-click menu when the rest of the UI doesn't have a right-click menu? But on this one page, the only way to do this is to right-click. Oh, you still haven't fully integrated this code base. This is still
because it was made by a developer. Yeah, developers that didn't care about the GUI.
This one was put together by an intern. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think another angle that's going to cause some wrinkles here is I do think AI-based chat tier 1 support and triage is coming. And I think it's going to drive these conversations into a more difficult spot of you can have our tier 1 triage and chat support that's chat-based and has all kinds of, data mining behind it and knowledge bases, but it only works if you have Kaseya 365 or ConnectWise's premium package. And I think that's going to drive some really challenging moments for a lot of MSPs of like, oh, that's a legitimate efficiency that I have to really wrestle with.
What's your take on using, as an end user, using AI chat? What's been your experience? Mine have not been good.
Oh, really? Like just for like troubleshooting problems or just like?
Yeah, just go into, for home consumer stuff, just go into the vendor of my security appliances and saying, and they'll have you can call us and wait online, or you could use this really cool AI chat feature. And I usually make it about 5 minutes, and I'm throwing rocks at it. It's like, get off the
Yeah.
screen.
I mean,
I
traditionally I
agree.
avoided those like the plague, but I feel like I've had multiple experiences in the last 6 months where I went, this is better. Not perfect, but it's getting better. I've had
Yeah.
moments that have given me hope that there's improvement coming.
I want it to work. I want to be able, I look at IT Glue and Autotask, and it's like, oh my God, look at all that rich, glorious, lovely data. Wouldn't it be great if we could just run queries against it?
Yes.
I
I
I
think
want it to work so bad.
there is one challenge on that front that we're also going to run into, which is you want it to work so bad and there's a lot of opportunity there, but then now you're going to find out that your IT Glue data isn't as good as you think it is because it's written by engineers trying to solve a problem and make notes just to get them through it next time. And then AI is going to go, all right, well, this is factual, and I'm going to drive all my responses off of this set of chicken scratch notes because I'm an engineer and I know how I did documentation when I was in a hurry.
Brandon, did you catch how tactfully he just called me an owner?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're
I
just
did.
an owner. You don't actually know what's going on. That
You
was
don't pay
very well
attention.
done, Nathan.
He's very tactful like
Oh,
that.
I don't think I could throw rocks in that space anymore. I'm not much use technically anymore either. So you're doing more technical work than I am these days.
I might be. I end up being the level 4 engineer more often than not.
Right.
Seriously. Just trying to get engineers like, because I think the beautiful piece is we work with a lot of very, very smart people. But most of the time when we're in the leadership position, we're just trying to unstuck them from digging a deeper hole.
No,
Think
you're right.
outside the box, right? I love the people, but Chris, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I think we're gonna have to wrap up, kind of reach the end of time, but this always brings you back to like a good old conversation of what Nathan and I used to have just going to lunch, just kind of talking about the MSP space, and just feels kind of nice to talk to other people with the same stuff, the same frustration, the same challenges, So I really appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed joining you, and obviously we both have Nathan as a lunch conversation starter in common.
Yeah, absolutely. It's perfect.
Now, if I can only monetize that. Hey, Nathan's really good at lunch, so feed him and pay him.
Yeah, I
I'll
like
buy
it.
you the next lunch.
DoorDash style, right?
Right.
That's it. Oh, man.
Well, perfect.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
Thanks,
thanks,
Chris.
guys. Yep.
We're gonna wrap it up, Chris. This is where we say, thank you to all the listeners. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, make some comments, talk about our love for ConnectWise or how Chris did really good at not saying any bad stuff about any vendor. So appreciate it. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. That was fun.